Welcome everybody to another Mrs. Pie. I'm so excited that Dr. Pinkins is joining me tonight. How are you?
I'm fine, and you? I'm glad to be here.
I've been waiting for this for quite some time. So before we get started, I do want to say hello. We have a lot of folks who watch our replays, but we're also live right now on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, and Parade Deck TV on the Mrs. Pie channel. So what's up, everybody? Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like the video so they don't kick us off the social media streets. But Dr. Pinkins, so you're one of, I try to give folks their flowers before I jump into the interview because that's just how we do things. But you're one of the kindest, most genuine human beings that I've met. You're also an Air Force veteran, so thank you so much for your service. I got to get all this out, y'all, because before we get into talking about Empowerment Academy and everything that Dr. Pinkins does, y'all should know that she's just a woman of real substance, a woman of faith, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity for you to share your heart, encourage some people. I know there's we're at the time of year now where we're shifting into the holidays, and there might be somebody out there who could use the encouragement as well. So thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, well, thank you for inviting me.
So, all right. So I want to start with just getting a little bit more about, so just again, introducing you as I mentioned Air Force veteran. You're a certified empowerment coach for Christian women who are hurting from unresolved emotional trauma. You're a speaker, you're a senior pastor, you're a survivor, you're an inspiration, and you're an author of two books. And I do recall you just closed out the Holiday Empowerment webinar. I think the last one was yesterday, right? You had a session yesterday. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was?
Well, we had that webinar because some people find it very difficult during this time. Not everybody's real happy and this and that. Some people are very lonely. And some people have very challenging times as they visit with families, or recalling, like one of the people that were on yesterday, she said, my father died yesterday, 40 years ago. Wow. And I remember the time. And I think about the people who've lost loved ones right near this time of year, that it's not a jolly. So we were wanting to minister to those people and to encourage them and uplift them. And there's actually a disorder, they call it a seasonal affective disorder, SAD, that people go through, and the increased depression. They said suicide increases. So we were trying to reach out and encourage people.
Yeah, and I love that, there's a couple of organizations that Mrs. Pie actually supports. Stop Soldier Suicide happens to be one of them. So shout out to that organization. We try to send people, where they can find resources. But let's talk a little bit more about your Empowerment Academy. Can you tell us, what is it that you do?
Well, I do coaching for individuals. Our main focus is those who have unresolved trauma or carrying pain from their past, because your pain blocks your power and it blocks the greatness that we have inside from coming out. So we coach, and the coaching that we do, we try to do it in a way to customize it to the individuals, what they need. And so later on, we're going to be training coaches to do the same thing that I'm doing. And so it's enjoyable. It's like I've been doing it all my life. It just wasn't a business. And I've just found my place, and it's so natural for me, and it's what I'm going to do the rest of my life.
So how did you find your place? So whenever I meet people who are walking in their purpose, you can see it all over your face as you're talking talking about what you do. How did you get there? How did you know, like, this is it?
Well, the other thing too, God has given me a heart to always help people. I remember being in high school, and there was a young lady who was homeless and had nowhere to go. And I brought her home, and I said, "Mom, can she live with us?" I think we might have had maybe 3 or 6 months of school left. And so my mom let her live there. She didn't get any check or any money from social services. So that's always been my heart, to help people be better off. And throughout, teaching, I've taught in 5 different inner cities. I've seen a lot of hurting people, and in situations where people are not living at their highest potential for one reason or another. And so that's what really inspired me for coaching. But I didn't know anything about coaching until about 4 years ago. I didn't know it was a field, but we had a women's conference at the church that I was attending at the time, and a coach spoke. And it's like the Holy Spirit said, I've always been very private, to keep things in. And he said, you can trust her, you can talk to her. And I'll give a shout out to Coach Mo. She's in the insurance area. She deals with insurance with women. But anyway, she started coaching me way below her market price. And that's when I learned about coaching. So that's what kind of launched me into it. And then I found my niche of helping those where I had the greatest pain in my life.
Wow. Do you find that within the Air Force community as well? So whether they're veterans or military spouses, do you find that that there's a lot of, and it's a throwaway question because I know the answer is yes, that there are a lot of veterans that, especially this time of year, if they're away from their families, and you mentioned something called SAD. What is that? What is that?
It's a seasonal affective disorder, SAD. And they've actually got a psychological term for it. And it's what people go through in being more depressed. Well, military members and military connected community members have a higher incidence. Research shows that higher incidence of post-traumatic stress, whether it comes from separation, whether it comes from experiencing trauma in combat, or whether, sexual assaults in the military, and the stresses and strains of life. So those things. And some people have been dealing with it for decades and it's still not resolved. So yes, you're right that there's a higher incidence within the military and military connected community.
Do you have a couple of pieces of advice that you could share with the military community that, even how do you identify what that is, or some advice on, what do you do?
Well, one of the things, the first step, whether it be military or whether it be the general public, is that there has to be awareness. And what happened to me was I had a very traumatic domestic violence situation when I was 10 years old. And it brought a lot of fear and anxiety and pain. But I pushed that and held it inside for 40 years, never telling one person, although it was affecting me. Now, the good way it affected me was the fact that it made me become a high achiever. So it's like I had to prove myself and ultimately end up being the first African-American female as a missile combat crew commander. So that was the good side of it. But the bad side of it was so far pushed down that I didn't even realize that it was there. That's how it was. But when I got knowledge and attended a seminar about domestic violence and its effect, it's like if the pain just rushed up. So I became aware that I needed to deal with this. And I was even going to go the counseling route, but God supernaturally did some things, and using some faith-based principles, that's how I got my freedom. So one of the things I look at now at the individual, like for example, I have one of my clients at 40 years old, but she experienced a lot of trauma when she was growing up, and in her teen years, sexual trauma, physical abuse, emotional abuse, and so on. But she wouldn't deal with it either. But then when she became aware of it and started to have coaching sessions with me, so she's been able to get, because there's a freedom that all of us desire to have. But
Yes.
true freedom and true inner peace can't come when these things are pushed down, but they will affect our relationships, they will affect our self-esteem and everything else.
Wow. So can you talk about your book? There's a book, and I've dropped a link to your site in the chat already, so y'all can check it out. But there's a downloadable book called 5 Essential Keys to Unlock True Freedom and Overcome Emotional Trauma, which kind of anchors to what we're talking about. Can you talk a little bit about what that book is? And then we want to talk about the other books, because she's an author, y'all.
That ebook is a free book. All you have to do is visit my site, as Mrs. Pye said. And it's really just walking you through 5 essential things. And one of the first thing is becoming aware in your belief system, what you believe. Some people believe, well, this is just the way I am. And I've carried it this many decades. I can't be free. So this is the way I'm going to go to my grave. But that's not so, because deep within every person, every human being, we want to be free. Deep within every human being, we want to realize our potential and the greatness that God has put inside of each of us. But the things that have happened to us, so we need to be delivered. We need to be healed. We need to be coached and helped so that we can break out of those emotional prisons.
Wow. And then, so let's talk about the other books. I believe you have 2 other books.
Yeah, there are 2 of the books.
Let's talk about them.
The other 2 books are available on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. And one is called Divine Poems from Above. And that book is short poems, but dealing with all different aspects of life from a Christian, Christ-centered focus and word base. So those are poems that God gives me. I think in that book, there's over 200 poems. And I have another volume 2 that hasn't been published yet, with about 200 to go. But the other thing too is that the one about my life story, and I included everything in there except for the domestic violence, because I wanted to save some people who are guilty.
Yeah.
So, but it's my life story. It says, life is precious, valuable, and purposeful. Treasure every moment and every person. So, I think I'm learning more and more as I get older to live in the present, to look at people, no matter how raunchy or bad or smell or whatever they may be, they have value. They have value, and my interaction with them should increase or add value to their lives. It shouldn't subtract. So I'm just glad that I'm able to have those resources available.
Wow. I love that. I love that the way that you say that as well, is realizing that people around you have value. And I think one of the things that we have done as a society, especially the last 10 years, is we go into our bubbles and we stay in the bubble. And, something we talked about before we went live, I was saying, y'all know me, I'm a church girl, but I was saying that even in ministry, that you have to come out of that bubble and go where people are, meet the people where they are. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because you are everywhere. Like Dr. Pinkins is everywhere. How do you do that? How do you go into the marketplace, witnessing, ministering, coaching, bringing all of your experience, really helping people, like I said, you cannot do this in a bubble. You have to reach people where they are. So how are you doing that?
Well, the other thing about it too, I think first of all, is getting in touch with you, who you are, and fully accepting the good, the bad, and the ugly. God can use it all. And then being wherever you go, being spirit-led. Let the Holy Spirit lead you. I've been bartering with a person who's from Poland. She's a Polish lady. She does some graphic artwork for me, and I do once a month coaching session for her. And she said to me recently, because she's got some challenges in her life, she said, Dr. Pinkins, you have 2 major areas where you help people. One is the supernatural, And the second one is dealing with trauma. She said, can you put together something for the Polish people? Because many of them don't believe in the supernatural.
Wow.
They are 95% Catholicism,
yeah.
So anyway, I sent her a 20-minute video. And from that, we were discussing, we said, okay, we're going to develop a webinar so that people can come in and start to learn. And I see the Polish people, especially a lot of the women, they're really sincere Christians. They love God, but they only operate at a certain level because that's all they're taught. They can go through the rituals and so on. So anyway, long story short, we're planning to launch a webinar so that we can continue to teach and train. And so that and I know the women are going to get hungry, so they're going to want group coaching or more, because God is at work. And so, and we're going to do it bilingual. First she said with the webinar, the one I sent her, she said, I'm going to put Polish subtitles. And I said, why don't we just do it bilingual? We don't make it long, maybe 15 minutes, so we're planning to do that in 2024.
Oh, that is awesome. And I need to know when that's happening, because I'm I'm sitting here like, oh, I want to learn. So, all right. So over the past years, you've helped a lot of women, achieve what I call true and lasting freedom, because it's tied back to spiritual, right? And again, everybody knows that's my foundation. Is there a specific, like a success story that stands out for you? Is there a success? What am I saying? Success story that you can spotlight, or you don't mind sharing?
I was thinking about that earlier, and I won't mention names, but it was when I was in Jamaica. I lived in Jamaica 6 years as a missionary pastor. And when I was in Jamaica, one of my parents, who was gifted and trained as an artist, she lived in England, grew up in England. She's Jamaican, but grew up in England. And so she would come in and volunteer once a week to do our art as an art teacher. And once I was in her house, and it's natural for me to encourage people, whether they be the students, whether they be the parents, or whether, I'm interacting. And so I was in her home, and I said, well, where's your work? And she says, it's under the bed. I said, under the bed? She says, no, I don't paint, or I don't do any art anymore. I said, why? This is your talent, because I'd seen some of the things she was teaching the children and so on. And so she started pulling it out. Oh, Mrs. Pye, the quality of work, the gifting, the creativity was just amazing. And so I started to coach her and encourage her. And the next thing you know, she had put it under the bed because her husband had criticized her and got on her. And so it had been under the bed for years.
Wow.
So anyway, she got it out. She started painting again. I thank God for that. And today, her work is on the web, selling for thousands and thousands of dollars. She's no longer married to that individual, and she lives back in England now. But she found her purpose, and she's able to be a blessing, and it's just amazing. And I go to her site out there, and I thought, man, this was all hidden, and here it is. And so that greatness came out of her.
Wow. And that's a gift. That is a gift to be able to do that. Not everybody can see the real potential in other people. That in itself is a gift. And so that I appreciate that. And y'all, I know my family is like, she talking about Jamaica. It wasn't a setup, y'all. I'm Jamaican. It wasn't a yachty setup. It was a real story. So can you talk a little bit about the church? I believe you're planting a church.
Yes. And I just want to say, I'm no longer just American. I'm a Jamaican. After living in Jamaica 6 years, and I have Jamaican friends here, and they said that's what I am really too.
But anyway, adopted.
Yes. About the church, we're planting a church. It's called International Church of Destiny, and the church has been in my belly for years. I ran from it for 2 decades because I didn't want to be a single female pastor. Well, anyway, I've stopped, and I pastored some when I was in Jamaica as a missionary pastor. I wasn't the senior pastor there, But a year ago, I started Bible study. I had that for a couple of years on free conference call. But I said, no, God, I'm going to. And as soon as I did this year, then I had challenges. My mom had challenges with her health. And so we stopped. But I've started back. We're on Zoom now. And I'm going to continue. And this is what I'm going to do too the rest of my life. I don't see anywhere in the Bible where it says they retired. So I don't think
they didn't.
For Christian. So no.
I love that. And you know, when I first met you, our first conversation, I would just remember sitting back saying, there's so many things that you know we have in common. I like you ran for 20 years, you know, until your legs give out. You can't keep running, okay? And so I love that you stop running and you've shifted into that part of your gifting and serving people and coaching people. What do you see coming up in 2024 for yourself, whether it's the Empowerment Academy or the webinars, or what are some of the things that you're excited about in 2024?
Yeah, and I just want to backtrack a little bit. We have a lot of churches.
Yeah.
But God has called us to be a supernatural church where the Spirit of God can move anyway, through anyone, at any given time, so that people are saved, healed, delivered. And people should be trained up, not to sit on pews, but to go out and take their place in the harvest field. So that's the difference about International Church of Destiny. And it's international. So it's interesting that we were kind of forced to go on Zoom, but it's over there because we have somebody in Brazil, we have someone in Poland, we have someone in Africa, Angola, and God is moving. But I want to say this, in 2024, one of my mentors, when I went through the Service to CEO program with the Rosie Network through, I was met this mentor. So we're doing we have 2 sessions in January where we're how to set smart goals and achieve them. And we have 2 sessions in January. And if it goes well, we're going to repeat them for February, because I mean, people give resolutions, like you said, and they grew, but many times they just need a community. And we believe that it's time to soar, as you said, in 2024. So we're going to help people soar. We're going to do these webinars. The webinars are free, but prayerfully, we want to get a group that would join, like an accountability group and encouragement group. And and we plan on doing that. That's one thing. I plan on going live on Facebook every day for at least 2 to 5 minutes to share an empowerment gem, and then invite people to come to the Empowerment Success group, so that I can continue to reach out and to minister to people. And those who want, they can reach out to me to have individual and or group coaching. But that's how I'm going to sow into people's lives. And I'm believing God to do amazing things.
Wow, that's awesome. And people can find you on Facebook. Can they go to the drpinkinscoaching.com and find your social media, or what's the easiest way for them to do that?
They can do that. They can go on Facebook and just put my name in, but they can also go to drpinkinscoaching.com. And so, you know, you'll find me. As a matter of fact, if you put me in Google, and I also have a blog with the poems, you'll find me.
And on LinkedIn, y'all literally could just Google Dr. Pinkins and you can find her everywhere. Like I said, she's out here doing amazing things. What do you, and just as you said, Rosie, like it just came back like, oh yeah, I'm involved in Rosie too. I was a coach or a SME, helping some of the business owners do branding. So I taught a couple of classes. So shout out to the Rosie Network, shout out to Parade Deck, because that's something else that we also have in common, is that Dr. Pinkins is a part of the Parade Deck family. So shout out to Parade Deck, Andrew and everybody, Rico, especially for introducing me to Dr. Pinkins. Again, our entire Air Force family, whether you're a veteran or a military spouse, I got to make sure I get it all out, because she is involved. Like, this is why I said she is everywhere. She's involved in a lot of really cool things. And I'm so excited about all and everything that God has for you. The fact that you are pouring back into other people. And I wonder if there's anything you wanted to share that we missed, or I just want to make sure we get everything out for you.
I forgot to tell you too, in 2024, I'll be starting a podcast, which will be on Parade Deck, and it's called Dr. Love with Wisdom from Above. And I plan on Instagram and TikTok in it and everything. So I just believe God wants to get his word. People need to be encouraged. People need to be taught. There's, like I said, there's greatness in each and every one of us. The graveyard is one of the richest places on earth. And there are books and services and products to come forth. And so I just want to be used by God to do that.
I love that. Thank you so much for this. This was amazing. I appreciate your time. I'm looking forward to your webinars, podcasts, other books, events, everything. I'm here to support you as well. I'm just so grateful for you. And, we'll tell these folks good night. But again, I just want to make sure that I just give you your flowers and just say, I am so honored to know you, Dr. Pinkins. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. Praise God.
All right. Thanks, y'all, for watching. Don't forget to like and share the video, and we will be back next week.